Well, happy Easter, everybody. It's Easter 2013, and I love Easter. There's so many reasons I love it. I love it because of spring, even though we may not have seen so much of that yet. I think the weather is changing. I remember when I was a youngster in West Virginia, I can remember having my new Easter dress, and we used to have the patent leather shoes and the coat and the hat and the purse. That was crazy. I mean, and the gloves and the hair done the day before at the beauty parlor, which I hated. And, you know, it was, but anyway, we did all that. And then, of course, the Easter basket, we'd be walking outside carrying the Easter basket, and, you know, the little moving camera, you know, taking the pictures and we're waving, and, you know, like all that, you know. But I remember where I was going with this is the dogwood trees in bloom and the tulips and the all the bulbs blooming, and haven't seen much of that yet this year. So either Easter's early or the blooming season is a little late. But either way, Easter to me represents, you know, the end of the rest of the winter and the beauty and rebirth of spring, which is just around the corner. So it's a beautiful time of year and a time of rebirth and renewal. And before we go into discussing this, I have an Easter memory, and Ellen will remember this. This happened years ago in Florida. I had a dog named Crystal. You may have heard of Crystal. She was a rescue dog. A mutt, but I won't tell you the story how I found her, but we found each other, and that dog was so defensive of me. If you'd go to hug me, she'd have her arm in your mouth within an instant. And, you know, she just was a beautiful dog, and a Shepherd Retriever mix. And she used to go with me with the kids' outings that the Palm Beach Center for Living had, and then the county home and the rest homes. She would go, and here's this big dog, and of course she got so fat I had to stop taking her because the residents in their wheelchairs would hold cookies down, and she would, and she did. She looked like this head, and then this body was but she would literally, she was a pretty assertive, aggressive dog and a big dog, and she would jump into bed with these people who were not able to get out of bed, and she would gingerly step up and lay down with them, and there'd be wires and everything all around. She just had that intuition. Wow. Well, Crystal also loved, I guess like many dogs, loved to eat more than anything. And I remember one of the things we did was we used to make Easter baskets for hundreds of kids in Palm Beach County, inner city kids and disadvantaged youth. And I remember we had tons and tons of contributions, you know, the Easter egg chocolates and the chocolate bunnies and the Peeps and the jelly beans and all that. I mean, when I'm talking, fill the stage that much. And tons of just bags of it. And so I had some French doors in my house in Florida, and I guess I didn't pull them too, and I had all the candy in there. And I woke up one morning and I screamed because there were Peeps on top of chocolate that she had regurgitated. So I think she gobbled she must have gobbled 5 pounds of chocolate and Peeps, and it was like whole Peeps, so she didn't even chew, you know, just like, and I mean, it was awful. I mean, awful. And what was even the worst, I screamed because, first of all, I know chocolate kills dogs. That's a program. So I'm like, Crystal, Crystal, where are you? So she was like shaking. So I thought she was going into convulsions, but she was shaking because I was screaming. And she knew she probably did something she shouldn't have. But I took her to the vet. The good news is he didn't even have to pump her stomach. He said she's got an iron gut and she's fine. So, well, she's not fine anymore. Well, she was fine. Hi, Crystal. Anyway, that was a Easter memory that I have of my beloved Crystal dog. We definitely had a strong connection, and she did survive the 5 or 10 pounds of chocolate and Peeps that she ate. Wow. I never looked at Peeps the same way. I don't think I've eaten them anymore. And, so it's pretty interesting. So there you have it. Now, one thing I do want to share with you before I go into, and maybe you all have heard this, but I do find it very interesting, and I've heard it before, but it's something worth sharing because I always my goal, and I think all of us who come here to the Namaste Center, we may have a different perspective on spirituality and religion than other churches and worship centers. And, you know, I'd like to encompass everything and find that common denominator that flows through, and the relationship. You know, every religion has its story of the crucifixion and the resurrection and forgiveness and love. And this one, of course, Easter is the story of Jesus and Christianity. Well, incidentally, I love Joel Osteen, and he posted, you know, Jesus, I just saw this on Facebook and I thought, wow, that's cool. Jesus did not come here to start a church. He came here to be our friend and teacher, basically what he said. And I said, well, isn't that nice that he's putting this message out here? Because it's all become about the church and Jesus hanging on the cross and, you know, everything that I don't think it is. And somewhere along the way, even though the resurrection is like the Super Bowl, you know, it's like the finale here, it's still maybe not in the context that maybe some of us would appreciate. But looking back, even before Easter, I found this little tidbit interesting. It says, Easter was originally the celebration of Ishtar, the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of fertility and sex. Her symbols, like the egg and the bunny, were and still are fertility and sex symbols. Or did you think that the eggs and bunnies had anything to do with the resurrection? So, you know, it's kind of like, where did that come from? Well, now we know Ishtar. And after our beloved brother Constantine decided to Christianize the empire, Easter was changed to represent Jesus. But at its roots, Easter, which is how you pronounce Ishtar, is all about celebrating fertility and sex. So there you go. So we think we're celebrating one thing, but it's really about something completely different. So go celebrate however you want. Sex, yeah, we're celebrating sex today, so that makes good. So, but going back to the story we're here to share today, which is the story of Holy Week and the story of Jesus. And Jesus, I titled this Easter from a healed perspective, not one of suffering and Jesus' crucifixion and just all the, you know, I still can't walk into many Catholic churches because the idea of the suffering Christ and the blood and it's not the representation that I've come to know and that I accept now. But besides that, you know, Jesus was an incredible man, and you know, I come from a Course in Miracles perspective, which he dictated, and he basically came to us, to a woman, and dictated this book to her over a period of 7 years, and said, you know what, 2,000 years ago, I came with a message, you all misconstrued it greatly. Let's see if we can get it right this time. And so it's the teachings of Christ from a completely different message, a paradigm. And he represents himself not as God's chosen son, but as an example of what is potential in all of us. And that he goes on to say that all are chosen if you choose to listen. The difference between us and him is that he chose to follow the voice of God in love, where we tend to get distracted. We lose focus. We're like, oh, that looks interesting, that looks interesting, oh, I'm going to judge that, I don't like that, and we go on, where he could always keep his focus and mind on God. He comes to us as an elder brother, a teacher, and a friend. And I think he probably was, you know, an activist. I bet he was a really cool guy. You know, I have a feeling he was kind of someone we'd all like to hang around with. And I don't believe that he wanted a church built in his name. I don't think that's what it was all about. He was more about sharing love and telling everybody that we all have that potential within us. Well, I think of, you know, Jesus Christ Superstar, which is a great movie. Who's seen that? Everybody? If you haven't seen it, it is a wonderful expression of the story, the life of Christ, and it's amazing. But I still have that picture of Jesus riding into Jerusalem on the donkey, being exalted, and here I just he had to feel good, even though I think that had to feel good. We all enjoy that. I can imagine times when we all have had that period of our life where we're appreciated and exalted and people are happy for us, and how good that feels. So, that's something we can relate to. And I think that the message of Jesus is using this Holy Week as he's just showing us a mirror of our own experience, our own life experience. So he comes in, donkey, palms, people cheering, singing, it's all good, feeling good about it. As the week goes on, things shifted a little bit. As we know, he was betrayed by Judas, who turned him in and to the Romans. And here before you know it, he knew what was happening. I really believe he knew what was happening. And I look at this, I'm thinking, well, in his life, here he's experienced the exaltation and the appreciation and adulation from so many people. And then 3 days later, he is betrayed. And I think we've all experienced that at some level. We've been exalted and we've been betrayed. And we've been denied as well, which he was too. So the message that I see from Jesus is, well, look, that wasn't such a good week after all. And, here we are thinking, well, yeah, it's easy for him because he was Jesus. But I think that because, and he was chosen by God, and he literally, he had something on his side that we don't. And I don't think that was the message he came here to represent at all. I really believe that he came here to say, yes, I've been exalted, people love me, it was great. I was betrayed, I was denied, I was crucified, and then now, of course, there's this guy who wrote The Killing of Jesus, this new book that he was on Piers Morgan the other night and went into the crucifixion and how horrific it actually was. So as if it wasn't bad enough, he's like, oh no, it was much worse. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting, and he went into graphic detail, and I was like, well, that's not exactly, there again, where I want to put my attention and focus on. And it's not because I think we want to deny that, because I really think that, the question people often ask, you think Jesus really suffered? You think he really experienced, the horror of what happened to him? And I have to say, this is a quote from Gary Renard's book, The Disappearance of the Universe. And he says, Jesus' consciousness was above the suffering of the body. He was here to teach us that we're not a body. And I believe that's possible. And I don't believe he suffered. The more I understand who we are in truth, and that this body is, as Gary Renard says, a meat bag. This body is nothing more than just something we use to get through day to day, and hopefully use it as a means of communicating love. That would be its highest and holiest of purpose. But I do believe that if we give spirit complete dominion in our body and in our consciousness, that we can transcend all pain, all suffering, and thus resurrect. Because the essence of who we are cannot be harmed by anything in this world. And what keeps us separate from Jesus, what keeps us in our crucifixion over and over, we play that over and over and over, is our need to judge, our need to stay in anger, to blame, to defend, to attack, to point fingers. And as long as we're doing that, we're missing the whole message, and we're identifying and putting our attention and our focus on what is temporal, what's not real, the form, in other words, versus the eternal spirit, which is formless, changeless, formless, and eternal, and can't be harmed in any way. And I find it interesting that the message, the last 7 words out of Christ's mouth on